Hello fellow Jerrycans. What is the most important aspect of any Pokemon game? The Pokemon creature designs, the region, the gameplay, the story, the waifus? Well, how about the one aspect that is important to any game's identity but one rarely talks about? The title! Any piece of fiction has names called titles. Name gives fiction identity, and I'll rate all these names in the Pokemon series. This might sound like a really stupid idea, but you might be surprised how much I have to say in this video. We're gonna grade every mainline Pokemon game's title based on how memorable it is, how much it actually conveys a message about the game, or whether it's just a cool sounding title or not. Gonna rate a 6 out of 6 grading scale because 5 out of 5 is too boring, the typical Pokemon team is made up of 6, and why the heck not? This might be the most actually energy video I've ever done, right? The first game in this series. Because of country differences, we ended up with many games, and that was Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green version. This was before they decided to name games off a motif from the legendaries, hence why we didn't get a Pokemon Purple and Pink, so we got versions that are named after the colors of the 3 starters. I just find it curious of this decision to do so because the reason why they even made versions was to make some Pokemon exclusive so players are encouraged to trade with another. But the colors and box arts could imply you might be able to get only that starter in that version of a game. But it's not that. Charizard isn't exclusive to Pokemon Red. You can pick Charmander anywhere. Still, it's just basic colors to show that it's the same game with minor alterations, and it's the first so I won't be harsh on it. I rate Pokemon Red, Green, Blue, the most average score, 3 out of 6 cursed Gen 1 Golbat sprites. Then we come to the first Pokemon Story version release. For this one, it's tricky because in the West it was Pokemon Yellow version, Special Pikachu Edition. Or is it just Pokemon Yellow version since the text for Special Pikachu Edition is in the same place as Gotta Catch 'em All, like the catch line? Well, in Japan, despite calling the first 3 games Pocket Monsters Red, Green, and Blue, they called the 4th one not Pocket Monsters Yellow but Pocket Monsters Pikachu. Why? Were they afraid the color yellow would offend someone, or were they thinking they should really make it clear that the new cultural sensation Pikachu is the focus of the game despite it being splattered on the box art? Well, my consistency loving OCD is driving me nuts, and I would have given a low score for the title if I was Japanese, but we're here to judge the English titles, and props to the English localization team for keeping up the consistency of using colors as titles despite the weird special edition text they added in. So I rated 4 out of 6 Pikachu facial expression sprites. Now we come to the Gen 2 games where they started a new trend, minerals! We got Pokemon Gold version and Pokemon Silver version. I think these titles are meh. I guess after the primary colors they wanted to show how this batch of new games is different and special by going with more shiny colors, which is alright, but that's the only positive I have. First of all, gold is not really a color or substance I think of when I picture Ho-Oh in my head, and silver is also not really a color or substance I think of when I picture Lugia in my head. Pure white and blue is Lugia, not a gray silver. For gold, Ho-Oh is supposed to be the rainbow Pokemon, and rainbow and gold? I guess there's the finding a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow mythos, but isn't that an Irish European folktale, not traditional Japanese? What's interesting is that when Ho-Oh first appeared in the first episode of the anime, Pokemon Gold didn't exist yet, but it was a gold colored bird in front of a rainbow, so maybe there's some subtext here that I'm not realizing. Anyways, my second problem with gold and silver is, when I think of gold and silver, I think of gold medal and silver medal. And you know, gold means first and silver means second place. Also in real life, ornaments like gold rings are usually much more expensive than silver rings. So there's this feeling that gold is the superior version than silver when it's not supposed to be. I love Lugia man. It should be on an equal footing to Ho-Oh. Anyways, even though mineral is a cool trend they started, for these reasons I rate gold and silver 3 out of 6 uncensored Gen 2 female swimmer sprites. We come to Crystal, and I guess this is more of a problem of the game's story, not the title. But why is there so much importance given to Suicune in this game? I guess this is before they invented a Source Legendary to accompany the main legendary, but still. Out of the 3 legendary dogs or cats, depending on who you ask, Suicune is the leader so it gets its own game? I feel bad for Entei and Raikou. And personally, I thought Entei would be more special because it got a movie centered around it before Suicune. Personally, I think they should have made a Source Legendary for Ho-Oh and Lugia. And think about it, what comes after gold and silver? Bronze, right? They should have made a Pokemon Bronze with a bronze themed legendary. Gold, silver, then crystal feels too out of left field. Maybe they thought that on a gold or silver ring you can put a crystal on it, but diamonds are more common for that, and we're getting ahead of ourselves, are we? Anyways, kinda nonsensical naming. I rated Pokemon Crystal 2 out of 6 Pokemon Trainer Chris's. Now we come to my favorite generation, and because of that I may be biased, but I love these titles. After all, if you're doing minerals like gold and silver, it's often used in jewelry, so the next logical step is to go for gemstones. And since the theme of the Hoenn games is nature, fire versus water, land versus sea, magma versus ocean, so getting the common red gem, Ruby, and the common blue gem, Sapphire, was a neat decision. Only problem I might have with these titles is that I guess Ruby has nothing to do with magma. In fact, I believe Quartz is made from magma, but that's just getting really technical, ain't it? I will just say because the main Pokemon games were gemstones, it was pretty funny in the mid-2000s all the Pokemon fan ROM hacks were gemstone names. I think you could have found a Pokemon ROM hack with any random gemstone you wanted, like Opal as the title back then. Anyways, I rate Ruby and Sapphire a 4 out of 6 crumpets. We get to the first Pokemon remakes, and it's a meh fucking title. I guess you can't help but compare to the cooler titles the next 2 Pokemon remakes will have, and that's the problem. Pokemon Red and Green. Red meant a fire type starter, so a fire red, and green meant a grass type starter, so a leaf green. It's a very unoriginal title. What's a shame is that there were cooler adjectives about fire or grass that could have been used instead. Something like Pokemon Blazing Red or Pokemon Frenzying Green. I don't know, fire and leaf is red and green. It's very redundant, so a bad title. I rated a 1 out of 6 Teachy TVs. Nothing else to say but great title that was a bit predictable. There was already a third green color legendary in Ruby and Sapphire, so of course the next legendary will be a green colored gemstone, and of course it'll be Emerald. Only problem is that when I think of the sky, I rarely think of the color green unless this was the freaking Matrix. Like the fiery land is red, the ocean is blue, and the sky is also blue, right? Whatever. I still love how the Gen 3 games tried to make the cartridges look like the gemstones, rather than the usual gray GBA cartridges, and Pokemon Emerald's green cartridge was goddamn beautiful. And I rate Pokemon Emerald version's title 4.5 out of 6 Pomac berries. I think they want to continue the gemstone motif, but Diamond and Pearl, really? It just feels like they just searched 12 birthstones on Google Images and randomly picked 2 substances that weren't Ruby, Sapphire, or Emerald. Also, just like Gold and Silver, Pearl is so inferior to Diamond. Diamond in real life has a lot of meaning and uses, you know? Give a diamond ring to the woman you want to marry while you propose. Diamond is also used often in industrial stuff because it's the hardest stone out there. Diamond will not scratch at a level 9 and deeper grooves at a level 10. But Pearl? It's just those rare stones that randomly form inside clamshell you might find while eating clam chowder. Not as epic as diamonds. Diamond rules, pearls suck. You can tell because diamonds are in Minecraft, but pearls aren't. Let's also talk about the time and space motif of Dialga and Palkia. I can understand diamond being time related because diamond is so hard, it'll never degrade or weather away, so it can be a timeless thing. But Pearl? What the fuck does pearls have to do with space? Unless the universe is made up of clams or something. And that's when I realized the only reason Palkia is a half water type is because it's the Pearl Pokemon, and pearls only appear in water living clams. What? Palkia should be called the seafood Pokemon. Anyways, lame. I rate Diamond and Pearl 2 out of 6 those weird bead things that Cynthia has on her hair, which I do not know the name of. You know, I fucking love Pokemon Platinum, but Platinum's title? It's just bizarre. First of all, Platinum really isn't a gemstone like Diamond and Pearl. It's a metal like Gold and Silver. In fact, Platinum is sometimes called white gold in some countries. I know Korea does. Platinum is basically a silver colored gold. So I guess instead of Pokemon Bronze, Pokemon Platinum could have been the third version of Generation 2. Anyways, what does Platinum have to do with Giratina? Yeah, Giratina has gold parts on its body, but there's also red, gray, and black colors on it. In fact, the box art of Platinum also has red-black features in the background. doesn't really evoke the image of Platinum Metal to me. And finally, Platinum's game logo before you launch the game has gold as colors, and gold color is used in parts of the game. In fact, Giratina's signature item is the Grishus Orb, which is a goldish colored item. Maybe it's not a gold, it's more of a brown maybe. The more I think about it, going back to the 12 birthstones, I think Game Freak originally wanted a Pokemon Topaz, which is a brown colored gem. Topaz is a brownish gold colored gem like the Grishus Orb, and it's on the 12 gemstone chart like Diamond and Pearl. Yeah, a Pokemon Topaz makes more sense as the third game to Diamond and Pearl, but I guess someone at marketing thought Topaz didn't sound cool as Platinum, I guess. Anyways, great game, but really baffling title that doesn't fit the game's mood, legendary, or motif. I rate Pokemon Platinum's title 1 out of 6 lookers. The second remakes! Well, it's a bit more creative title than Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, but at first though, the titles do feel a bit random. After all, what does Heart and Soul have to do with Gold and Silver? Well, I pondered about this for a while, and after some thinking, I think Heart and Soul is a brilliant name. It's because, in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the whole plot of Johto games is you, Ethan or Lyra, going around helping people, especially the Kimono girls. To beat the legendaries, you need to help from the Kimono girls. The Kimono girls test to see if you're a good person or not. So that's where the heart and soul motif comes from. The game's message is, you need a good heart and soul. And maybe it's also because the game developers put their heart and soul into making this excellent game. Whatever the reason, I think it's a cool creative name. I rate the Gen 2 remakes 5 out of 6 GB players. On the surface level, it seems like they ran out of minerals or gemstones and they're coming back to colors like Generation 1. Despite it being the most basic colors that any printer can print, Black and White is a great title. After all, the game's entire theme is clashing virtues, yin and yang, specifically truth and ideals. The only nitpick I have about Generation 5 is that I don't think truth and ideals aren't really black and white subjects. I think the opposite of truth is, lies. Instead of truth versus ideals, I think what they should have gone with is dream versus reality. What you want versus what exists. Or maybe that's just me being a Neo Game and Sandman fan, but I'm going off topic. Anyways, Black and White is an excellent title that actually has to do with the freaking plot. I rated 6 out of 6 perverted pedophile hikers on Ferris wheels. Possibly the game with the least much to talk about in this video. After all, unlike previous games, it's a sequel, so there's nothing else to call it that's not Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. I mean, I guess they could have put a secondary title like Return of Guesses in there or some shit, but that's just stupid. Just adding the 2 in the title gets the point across that this game is not a story game, rather a continuation of Unuva's story. It's short, concise, I rated 6 out of 6 Pokestar Studios green screen props. We've done colors, we've done metals, we've done gems, so what's next? Someone at Game Freak thought. What do all those things have in common? Ah, they're words made up of letters. Genius. We got Pokemon X and Y, and X and Y is weird naming. Why it's X and Y is obvious. The box art's legendaries are literally shaped X and Y. But Xerneas and Yveltal, well, it's hard to determine because of how incomplete Pokemon X and Y story was, but based on my deduction, lore-wise, Xerneas is supposed to represent life or birth, and Yveltal is supposed to represent death. Now, when you think of life and death, do you think of the letter X and Y? No, you think of the first and last letters in the alphabet, A and Z, the beginning and end. And in fact, in the game, there's literally a character named AZ. The term AZ is mentioned in the Gen 6 games here and there, with the MacGuffin project Azoth being mentioned in NORAS. So why isn't the game titled Pokemon A and Z? Maybe they were thinking of DNA chromosomes X and Y that make up life, but where does Pokemon Zygarde Z come in then? Well, more famously, the letters X, Y, and Z are usually used in equations or function graphs. What's also peculiar is that there's a character that's obsessed with numbers and equations in Pokemon who also has a one-letter name, and that character is in a different game totally unrelated. Maybe N was gonna appear in Gen 6 or some shit. I don't know what the hell is going on, N and AZ and X, Y, and Z. Whatever the case, I think Pokemon AZ would have been a better name, rating it 2.5 out of 6 girls that are only famous in hentai because of that one NPC selling milk. Oh boy, this game might be the game that actually made me want to make this video because of how ingenious the title of Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire is. First, it continues the letter motif like the games in the same generation. Instead of something predictable like Terra Ruby and Aqua Sapphire, they tried to make it consistent with the then modern Pokemon franchise. Latin sounds cooler than English, Alpha and Omega sounds just cool. Second, it also continues the life and death motif from X and Y. I don't want to offend any atheists, but Alpha and Omega is a thing from the Bible. It's a quote Jesus says describing himself, saying he's the beginning and the end. Now you may ask, what does life and death have to do with the Hoenn story? Well, life started out in the ocean, so it's Alpha Sapphire. And usually life ends on land and decays back to Earth, so Omega Ruby. Just like XY, ORAS is about life and death. I guess that's the ingenious of ORAS's themes. The original Hoenn games are about coexistence and Mother Nature, and the remix theme is about how nature is the beginning and the end, life and death. Nature can be a gift and sometimes be a real prick. Isn't that right, Makoto Shinkai? Anyways, perfect title. I rate it 6. No, it's the best. 7 out of 6 Mega Flygons. I guess after letters, they decided we should do Celestials, so we got Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. It's fine, I guess. Ever since Black and White, I think they've been trying to do opposing forces, and the two biggest opposing things you can think of is fucking day and night, which is governed by the sun and the moon. Only problem I can think of is what does Sun and Moon have to do with the game's Sun and Moon story? Alola game's biggest highlight is that it's set in Hawaii, and I guess it gets really sunny in Hawaii during the day, and that's about it. The Sun and Moon doesn't really have to do with the family story aspect of the main plot, or the island trials, or the Lovecraftian horrors from a twisted dimension thing with the Ultra Beasts. Still, memorable names. I rate Sun and Moon a 4 out of 6 annoying Rotom Pokedex that won't shut up. You know, I'm the biggest hater of this game on the internet, and I've ranted about this game a lot of times, but something I really should have ranted more about was the goddamn title of this game and the overusage of the word Ultra. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon is such a lazy, lame name for a deluxe version of Sun and Moon, because that's what Ultra means! Deluxe! It's like calling it Pokemon Deluxe Sun and Pokemon Deluxe Moon. Ultra is usually used to name non-gaming stuff like tech products, such as my actual phone Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It's anything but creative. It's a word fit for brands or marketing products, not as a serious video game title. Also, putting the word Ultra into everything, I know Ultra Beast from the Ultra Space was the main plot of the games, but they should have stopped there. But no, we got Ultra Warp Ride, Ultra Wormholes, Ultra Megalopolis, Ultra Recon Squad, Ultra Form Necrozma, Ultra Space Wilds, Ultra Ball? Fun fact, the balls that are used to catch Ultra Beasts are called Ultra Ball in Japan, but it was changed because the name Ultra Ball was taken by Hyper Ball in the English localization, so at least the English localization team stopped the madness by calling it Beast Ball. Why were they so obsessed with the word Ultra? Splattering such an uncreative, basic adjective everywhere in the game, including the title, shows you how little creativity went into this game. I guess just like the rest of the game itself, USN's title is a missed opportunity. The third legendary of Solgaleo and Lunala is Necrozma. Like other legendaries, Necrozma is clearly meant to be the middle between Sun and Moon. And what is between the Sun and Moon? Stars? No, it's an eclipse, you idiot! Combining the Sun and Moon creates a shadow, and that is an eclipse. They should have called it Pokemon Eclipse. Ugh, it's a terrible name. I rated 0 out of 6 rings from the game Superman 64. Sword and Shield may not be everyone's favorite Pokemon game, but as a title, I think it's actually pretty neat. After all, the game's whole theme is victory and glory. They aren't really subtle with the character names. Gym battles are like exhibition matches. Gym battles in the previous games took place in secluded private areas, but in the Galar region, the gym battles take place in stadiums like real-life soccer/football games. The Galar games turned the Pokemon battles into events. There's a big emphasis on battles. So I think the most fundamental items used in a real-life battle that's opposing each other is a sword and shield. So Sword and Shield is a great title. Also, Galar is based off of a European country, and I'm sure European knights in the olden days had sword and shields. I guess it would have been nice if the game itself didn't suck so much or the legendary Pokemon looked so ridiculous, but still, pretty good title. I rated a 5 out of 6 Gloria doing the Dexter protest pose. Is it a coincidence that these games are tied with USUM as my least favorite Pokemon games, and they also have the worst titles? Good god, BDSP isn't just satisfied being the worst Pokemon games, it's one of the worst title games too. Why? It's just adding a random adjective about the Jewels, Diamond, and Pearl at the beginning. Now, I get that the words Brilliant and Shining are probably from the Japanese names of Lucas and Dawn, because Lucas's name means a radiating light, and Dawn's name means light shining. Other than that, there's no creative input. Diamonds are a brilliant jewel, and pearls are a shining jewel, I guess. Lol. Hey, remember when the last remakes, the titles were actually really clever and had multiple meanings that connected to the lore?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Gosh, I remember a time when everyone predicted what the Gen 4 remakes would be called. All those fan-made titles like Pokemon Temporal Diamond and Spaceship Pearl, those are a much better name. I can't wait for more uncreative titles with the faithful Gen 5 remakes in the future. Or get any title related to truth or ideals. What are the most basic adjectives that can describe the colors black and white? Dark and bright, right? Pokemon Dark Black and Bright White coming up, folks. And the most ironic thing about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is that the game is anything but brilliant, and the game is about as shining as a black hole. I rate this title a 1 out of 6 traumatic trailer chibi don that made everyone not want an Unova remake. Lame name. First time I think Pokemon has really dropped the ball with the naming of their first main 2 games in a generation in a long while. First of all, we're back to colors again for some reason. Scarlet and Violet aren't even opposing colors. Scarlet is also just a word for a different shade of red too, which is already a game. Pokemon Scarlet version and Pokemon Violet version sounds like the name of some obscure Pokemon Ruby ROM hack you would find in GBA 10 forum that was posted in 2006. It just sounds dated, not the new main HD Pokemon game on the latest console. It's just very lame. Second, what does Scarlet and Violet have to do with the main story or Paldea? Nothing about the game's story or gameplay has to do with Scarlet and Violet. The only things that's Scarlet and Violet is the main legendary's color, and the school academy's color, which is different based on which version. But the story and the game would be the exact same if the academy or legendary or school uniform was green. It's just baffling. I think the main theme of the Paldean games is treasure, because they keep shoving it in the dialogue, and friendship because of the ending where everyone comes together. But that has to do jack shit with the colors Scarlet and Violet. I saw some people theorize that it's based on colors that are based in Spain's history, and if that is true, that's nice for Spanish people, I guess. However, this is a video game, not a history lesson, and it has nothing to do with the actual game's story. The only other explanation I could think of is that maybe in some parts of the world, the color Scarlet represents the past, and the color Violet represents the future. After all, another theme in SV is the past and future, because the whole plot involving the professor and the legendaries. Maybe that's what they were going for, but I honestly find that hard to believe. So in conclusion, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is bad with the names. I rate it 1 out of 6 censored Wiglet dick pics. Didn't realize this video gets this long. So to conclude, we ran into some Pokemon games with really great titles that could have multiple meanings, we ran into some average titles that's bland and predictable, and we also ran into some really fucking lazy titles that can burn in a ditch. I also want to emphasize that I may have gotten some facts wrong. I could have missed something about the hidden meaning or lore behind metals or jewels, so please enlighten me in the comments if you have any to add or refute. In a polite manner, please. Anyways, that's it. By the way, this is also a new series I'm starting up, rating everything in the Pokemon series. Next one could be about some major topic like rating every villain in the series, or could be about the most random thing like rating every UI in the series. Type in the comments on what topic you would like to see me talk about next, I'll consider it. Goodbye, fellow Jerrycans.